Okay, so it is time to keep these guys safe from the elements and little pesky critters. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here. It is actually a beautiful August morning here in 2020. So if you guys have been following us along, you know that we are basically turning this flat desert land into a functioning farm. If you peek behind me, you'll see the orchard is coming along pretty good. But one of the things that we're challenged with out here in the open is wherever there's water, there are animals. And then of course we also have our wonderful sun, which is coming up on me pretty quick. So one of the things that we have to deal with is our equipment really getting a lot of damage. Now, it doesn't matter where you are or what you're using. If you're here in Arizona and it's plastic, you're going to get sun damage. So no matter what you do, if you've got bubblers like this or anything similar, you're going to get some deterioration of those components, and it happens pretty quick. Second thing that we're dealing with here would be our pesky critters, more specifically things like rabbits and coyotes. So if Lori slides in a little bit closer, you'll see some of the damage being done. This head is normally completely just smooth and round. It's very, very rough. These bubblers are designed to basically just dribble half a gallon per minute onto the ground, and right now this thing basically kind of shoots out in sprays because it's so damaged. Now we're assuming that it's probably rabbits that are doing this damage. However, we have seen coyotes back here. Now we try to do some things for the coyotes, but with this kind of damage, we need to do something to protect these emitters. So each one of these emitters is about $3.50, so somewhere between $3 and $4. So obviously we have a small investment in this, but in addition, we know that our riser here is also getting sun damage. So we figured it was time to go ahead and protect this thing from the sun and from those rabbits. So what we've chosen to use are these guys right here. So these are your basic 6-inch valve boxes. We got these from Home Depot. I want to say they're around $6 or so. So not very expensive, very, very easy to use, and it's really what we're going to essentially try to use to keep this head protected. So now we've already put these out. In fact, in the background you'll see they're kind of spread out throughout the orchard. But the challenge is, as Lori spins around, even though we have them down, these last two emitters or bubblers at the end, something is coming through and basically taking those off of these last two and still getting at those bubbler heads. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get these things a little more secure. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to be using rock, and we're going to essentially sink these down just a little bit further and rock them in so they actually stay in place and don't move. Now, couple things about what we've got going on here. So we have, happens to be an almond tree, and this tree is planted, you can see, about 5 feet away from this bubbler head. And then we have a small channel that goes to what is a ring around that tree for watering. Now, once we get into this winter, we're going to be expanding that ring around the tree to go all the way around here, and this emitter is going to be right on the edge of that ring that's going to water the tree. So while this channel is temporary, this emitter head is permanent. So what we're needing to do from a design standpoint is incorporate this box, this emitter, into the eventual larger ring. So we're trying to keep that in mind as we design this. We have 55 fruit trees that we need to work on and get this done. So obviously a couple bags of rock is not going to be enough. So what I need to do is head over to the front of the farm, because we actually did have the rock delivered that we're going to utilize for this purpose. So this is the rock that we're going to be using. Now, we had some options when it came to rock. We ended up using Pioneer. It costs about $35 a ton to bring this 1-inch rock in. Now, to buy this bagged from Home Depot, I did the math, and it costs anywhere from about $70 to $80 per ton in order to bring them in bagged. So a lot less expensive to go ahead and get a bunch of it. Now, we'll use this for other projects around the farm, because we can use this to fill in areas when we have mud pits from rain, to fix areas in the driveway and the streets, and obviously projects like this. So we actually also did use them when we were working on the passive rain catchment catchment on the outbuilding in the house. So got lots of uses you can have with granite. In this particular case, we're going to be utilizing this for our project today to protect those bubblers. Now, of course, a big old pile of this, if you're in the city and you have a smaller area and you don't have equipment, you'd be doing this by hand with a wheelbarrow. And I've been there, done that. Fortunately for us here on the farm, we've got something a little bigger that can help us take care of this today. Heavy lifting is done. We have our rock. So now what we need to do is we need to clear out some space, build up a nice big berm to make sure the water is going to be captured and funneled or pushed this direction. So we're going to go ahead and get to work on that. Now, there are some carpenter ants, I'm assuming, some red ants in there that we're going to be working around in this mound. So I'm going to probably try to do this pretty quick. So you can see that was very simple. So one of the things that Lori and I learned when we did our project for the rain catchment and working with those pipes, those poly pipes, and working with water underground is really the importance of making sure you have a really steady slope where you want the water to go. Totally makes sense. But what I wanted to do was obviously build a slightly larger berm here. Remember, we had talked a little bit about the fact that eventually we will have a much deeper channel right here in a larger ring for this tree. So this is definitely a higher spot here. I slightly dug out the channel heading down towards the tree for now because the water will head that way. But essentially what we'll eventually have is a shelf right here. So the only thing I really need is to make sure that this is higher than that's going to be there, which is going to be pretty easy to accomplish. So one other thing I'm going to have Lori slide in, we learned this on the last property. We worked with valve boxes like this and emitter heads. Is we obviously want to have these as low down into the ground as we can as we rock them in. We'll have mulch and things like that around it. But we need to make sure that we have some space for the cap to go back on top of that emitter head. I know that seems really simple and obvious, but we didn't do that at the old property. Sometimes these will sink slightly, so we've given it about an inch and a half to 2 inches of space. So if it does sink, we're going to be okay. These have two cutouts. The idea is typically you would have an irrigation pipe coming through a valve box like this. We won't need that, but I wanted to make sure I had plenty of room in here. It's where the water is going to be coming out of with the rocks and act like basically a French drain. So I'll have water that can escape back here. So I built the berm up nice and high back here. Actually may add a little bit more soil back there just to be safe. And then of course I have the opening facing forward there to make sure water can slide out of there through those rocks as well. So now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and get the rocks out of the tractor there. Got the rocks placed. So now you'll see as Lori slides in, I took the rocks and built them up quite a bit. So they're just underneath the bubbler head here. Obviously, I'm gonna have to replace this bubbler head here shortly because it's pretty beat up. In fact, when we turn it on, I may need to replace it now. Either way, I'm gonna have access to that fairly easily. And then of course I did pile up some rocks on the outside. Now, one of the things we actually learned from George, he's our go-to irrigation guy. He's been doing irrigation for us for, goodness, since we've been out here, so 5 or 6 years now. And one of the things that he taught us when it came to the installation of valve boxes is utilizing larger rock when you're filling in the valve box areas, specifically because of what can be digging underneath and potentially push dirt back up into the valve box area, making it very difficult to get into the components. So we use the heavier rock and the larger rock because things like ground squirrels, mice, etc., can push underneath and actually push through small pebbles. They have a much more difficult time pushing through larger rocks like this. And we've noticed that that's definitely the case wherever he's put valve boxes here on this property. So another reason why we wanted to get the larger rock. Now in addition, we've also seen that we have certain creepy crawlers. I'm not exactly sure what's doing it. I think it might be either spiders or some type of beetle that does dig in through the lines that we trenched for the irrigation. We'll punch holes up through this way and we start getting water running back towards the main lines through the center of the orchard rows. So my hope is that having the rocks around it will not only keep this in place so that we can't have things moving it out of the way, but it will also keep water from going back up into the lines and really kind of forcing it to go back in towards the tree. So of course, now that we have that installed, what we really need to find out is whether or not this is going to work. So we have a Wi-Fi enabled controller here, and I'm a little nervous about this bubbler head, so we'll see. But this is my West 1. Let's see how we're going to do here. So hopefully you can pick that up on camera. This one's not too bad. Hopefully you can make that water coming out here. And that's about as fast as it goes. Typically we wouldn't have that water pushing up, it would drain straight down. So it's beat up, but it's doing okay. You'll see we already have water coming through just like it's supposed to. That looks great, and that water's heading right down towards the tree. So now I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. We have to work on these today. We've got a lot more of these to cover, so Lori and I are gonna get to work here now. We are done. At least we're done with this orchard. So you can see what it looks behind us here. So it looks pretty good. Obviously this will look a lot different once we get all of the wood chips in each one of these orchard rows and we've got a pathway here. But what we do know for sure is at least we have a better chance that we won't have things nibbling on our emitters. So one other thing I forgot to mention that we've already done once, and that is working in one of the tree rings. I've kicked one of those and we broke one over in this far corner. So not only is it going to protect from bugs digging, rabbits and that kind of thing digging through the sun, but also us so that we don't break one of these guys off either. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. Instagram and Facebook, we post content there you won't see here on the YouTube channel. And our Amazon shop, I'll leave a link down in the description. That's a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. Oh, and one more thing. If you haven't checked out our other channel, our Healthy Farm Living channel is up and running. We cover everything there we do to stay healthy. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you. I'm getting mixed up between the endings between this channel and the next channel.